I'm really sorry that we didn't have a chat before we started, but I said let's have a chat while we record. So thank you very much. And of course, you have to tell us about yourself. That you know the drill. You'll have to give me 1 minute to talk about the things I do, and then we'll go to philosophy and mediation. So please, Herman.
Yes, thank you very much, very much. I've not been able to watch all the sessions, but a few of them, and well, I'm very honored to be able to take part in this movement. So does it feel? I feel this moment with you as an intermezzo in the most deep sense of the word. It's very interesting maybe to say something about that before. I'm a musicologist also. So my first study was musicology, and I learned there that people like Robert Schumann and Johannes Brahms, they invented the intermezzo. And it was a very revolutionary thing at that time, because it was just something in the middle out of nothing. Silence, an intermezzo, silence again. And I think that's a very deep sense of knowing that when you make music or when you talk about something, it always has its source in silence, in nothingness, in the richness of the empty space. And out of the silence, there comes the music, and then it's silence again. So it feels like that I'm now doing an intermezzo with you in the greater movement with all kinds of sounds, and it's a wonderful thing. Thank you very much.
That's really interesting, Herman. That's a very deep thought. You've taken the whole thing into a different direction. So which means philosophy and mediation is going to be really interesting. But give me a minute to I mean, of course, you're going to tell us more about yourself. That part of it has to happen. I mean, what all you're doing in Netherlands and everything. So basically, I just put down mediatorvikram.com. Now there is one more person who's been added to this. So that person is not here right now on this. That person also from Greece. But the good look, I put out there about the World Mediation Circle, become a patron. So thank you, Herman, for being a patron.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
Nice to always get appreciated. But on the mediation circles, did you had a look at this? I mean, what the
yes,
concept?
Of course.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful way of describing the core of mediation, and also the whole idea of creating mediation circles. I think it's wonderful. I think it's also necessary, of course, in the times where we live in. And maybe I can just make some suggestions in the text, because I heard that you did some talk with the other speakers too. One thought of me in the beginning, I think you also think it's true that mediation is not an alternative dispute resolution, but it's the only dispute resolution, if I understand you well. I agree fully with that. And you also talk about revolution. And I think that's even a better word than resolution, because resolution still has a little bit the aspect of a technocratic thing, that you have to solve a thing, it's a mechanical problem, and we fix it. And I think revolution or dispute transformation even is maybe a little bit more accurate in the experience of going through a process of mediation. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing is about your definition of mediation. You say mediation is a process through which people in dispute attempt to reach an amicable settlement of the dispute with the assistance of a third person or persons lacking the authority to impose a solution on them. And that last phrase, lacking the authority to impose a solution on them, is, of course, very true. I think it's negatively worded. Maybe you can also say empowering their own authority in finding a solution.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, yep. Because I think one of the basic things that we experience in mediation is that also as a mediator, you are very often impressed by the richness of wisdom that is just around there, not in you, but in the other ones. And you are facilitating, you are making space, you are alluring them into the field, as Danny said, the field where things are just streaming and going a direction that no one beforehand could think of. So maybe empowering their own authority and finding a solution is a beautiful way to say it.
Oh, perfect. No, because I tell you, this definition was picked up from the definition in the Singapore Convention, and I took it from there only because the first time you would see a simple definition coming out, taking care, I mean, taking out of the picture all the various models people keep talking about, which confuses the user. Because for me, look, finally, everything is targeted to the user. And of course, the mediation world, we keep discussing about mediation, but finally, if the user doesn't use it, it doesn't help us.
That's right. So in that sense, it's a perfect text. Yeah. And what I also want to say beforehand is that I think also mediation is not only a thing that has to do with conflicts. It's just to do something with life. And that's where we're talking about today, the philosophy and mediation, the combination of that. I think it's a way of life. And when you see the beautiful book of Kenneth Cloke, I think maybe the symposium is also a little bit inspired by that, the dance of the opposites. Beautiful things in the beginning, also the quote, for example, and I think it has been quoted already in the other sessions, live at the empty heart of paradox. I will dance there with you, cheek to cheek, by Rumi. And I think it's also a process to which people in difference, not even in conflict, but also just being different, attempt to reach a joyful dance of polarities with the assistance of a third person or person supporting them to embrace the richness of being. So the definition in the context of conflict is just an aspect of mediation. I think that's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah. So, but I think, I mean, I won't waste your time on going through. But what I'm doing is just putting down the fact why this mediation circle for me it's important is because I just feel that we now have to take it to the grassroots level, develop from there. So the Netherlands Mediation Center, Herman, we have to be looking at that after this. So that important thing I want to put out here is that basically why this Be a Patron is there, because finally, look, if I mean, a lot of time is going to be spent, we have to do a lot of work. So we need support, and that part of it takes it forward. There's so much to do. There is so much to do. I mean, of course, I mean, it's going to be slow. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to be a process. We'll create, but like-minded people, grassroots and like-minded people taking it forward. Of course, Georgina is there somewhere. We can't see her, but we can always say hi to her.
Her name.
She's there. You know. So Herman, it's all yours. Philosophy and mediation.
Thank you very much. The first thing I want to say is that the word symposium is also a very philosophical word, isn't it? Because it's the title of a book of Plato. And as you know, it means drinking together, having a party together with the wine of wisdom. And I think that just makes it very wonderful to talk about philosophy, because the love for wisdom and the fruit of wisdom in the biblical sense is also a very joyful thing. It's a happy thing. It's the richness of being. And I think it's very important to begin with that, and to thank you for being part of this drinking sessions. Maybe in a way, the wine will be also drunk. How do you say that? In real life, in the future. I hope so. And now it's an online sipping of the nectar of the gods, as I want to say. And wine has one thing. It makes happy. It also helps to speak the truth. People say children and drunkards are talking the truth. And it also helps to get into a kind of oblivion, kind of unknowing, opening up for the bigger things that we cannot comprehend with our own minds. So that's a funny thought I had on Symposium. Okay.
That's very nice. But this I will take out next time I'm putting out the Symposium. I'm going to take this quote and I'm going to put it by the Symposium.
getting drunk together in a wise way. Yeah. Well, I think philosophy. I'm talking a little bit about myself. I studied musicology first. I'm part of a family where religion was a very important thing. My father was a preacher, so texts and talking about it and having talk about ethics, etc., and especially the wrongdoing of all the persons in the congregation. It was a subject of talk all the time. My father had also a rich library. As a young child, I read much too early Alzo sprak Zarathustra from Nietzsche. So I was put into a world of thinking and of literary, creative imagery, imagination that has really formed me at a very young age. And I've been a reader since. You can see it behind me, of course. I love reading books. In my study time, I first began with musicology, and there very soon the questions about why is music beautiful, what makes sound have meaning for us. So the philosophical questions, they intrigued me very much. And so I, after 2 years, also added philosophy to my study program. And later on, I became also a preacher and had theology as my third study. So that's one thing about my development in the beginning of my human being personhood. How do you say that? After a while, I also went into the practice of preaching. So I was a vicar at 3 congregations. It was a very difficult time for me, many conflicts. Also at person level, I was attacked and I came into a burnout in 2012. And out of the burnout came a love for conflict in the good sense of the word, that I learned a lot about the desert you are coming into when there is no orientation anymore, no basis to build on. What are then the core values, the lifelines in your life? And I wanted to be part of a way of living that helps people to cope with the chaos of conflict. I never had heard about mediation, but then in these times I heard about it and I did the education that is necessary for being an official mediator here. And since 2015, I'm full-time mediator. And well, I cannot choose very well. So I do everything about mediation that is possible. Family mediation, working place mediation, also victim, how do you call it in English? It's
victim offender.
Yeah, restorative justice.
Restorative justice, yeah.
That sort of mediations. And I'm also an entrepreneur, so I have also a great group of people around me that are serving the Dutch people nationwide. So, well, I really feel that I'm now at the place I have to be. Because I think helping people in the chaos of conflict and disputes is one of the most wonderful and deep things you can do. And I hear a lot of colleagues talking about the wonder that happens when people are coming out of the patterns of destruction and verbal assault into a warmness, a softness, the joy of feeling that the differences are not painful anymore. Of course, that's a romantic story. It's not always that way, but the movement towards that end is in itself very valuable. Yeah, so that's a little bit about my story.
So now you're going to move us into philosophy and mediation. That's
yes, that's right. But I think what also is quote of the book of Kenneth Cloke, Dance of the Opposites. I feel the other, I dance the other, therefore I am. I think helping people to be at ease where there is no peace, to adjust them to a place where there is so much things unknown, many things unknown, and the direction is not clear. That's one of the deepest lessons I think that we practically experience in mediation, that is theoretically thought about in philosophy. Many times you think about philosophy as the systems, as the dogmas that certain philosophers has built in the history, and that's then philosophy. But I think philosophy is not something you reach, it's something you do. It's a journey of questioning, probing, thinking behind things, loving the questions in itself. And I want to end with a beautiful quote of Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke, one of my heroes also in my youth, that helped me a lot. And he also talks about questions as a space of openness, wherein creativity and everything that where life is about is able to flourish. And I think philosophy really is a way of looking at things, always questioning, always again, trying to find answers, but not the answers are not the goal. The answers are also the next step for the following up of questions, the next questions. So it's a love of questioning. And I think that's also a very deep thing, because very often we are of course in a society where the experts are saying the last word of things, and then we have to deal with that. But I think it's very human, and it has also to do with the freedom we have, I think, and that's a core thing for me in mediation also, but also in philosophy, that truth is the search for truth. Wisdom is the search for wisdom, the love for wisdom, and the process that's connected to that it is, in fact. And I think mediation is the mediator is teaching by example, I think, as the philosopher is also, by helping people question, by helping people to be silent. Silence, I talked about earlier, about the intermezzo before, after silence. I think also the silence where things are heard that you did not hear before. The curiosity, the wonder of things. It's a way of life, it's an attitude, and whatever is the subject of the dispute, the conflict where people come for help, I think at a deeper level, they want to be helped in being able to live with difference, to live with not knowing, to live with being a limited person, having to deal with the otherness of the other. And I think as a mediator, we are helping them to experience that. And for me, that's a parallel with philosophy, because philosophy is also, as an attitude, a way of making things strange again, so that we can meet them again in a new manner. Always going behind the superficial clarity of things, digging deep into the levels where things have to really tell me who they are and what they mean. So I have to be silent and listen.
Because I think this aspect of silence, I think to a certain extent, I would want you to connect to the one thing that I keep talking about, heart, soul, spirituality, and how silence is something where connections happen on a different level. So that part also, I mean, whether you want to do it in this session or we'll do a separate session on that, but that is something we also need to look at.
Yeah, yes, sure. And I think the power of the pause, I was last time I had a lecture of a psychiatrist, and he said, what is the biggest, most influential intervention of a psychological counselor or psychiatrist counselor? And he said, it's the pause after the question. Being able to do nothing and let it come. Trusting the process. that we are all part of. And then just being a witness of the act of creation of the wisdom itself, you know, that's very well, I am not religious anymore. In my life, the church has not been a safe place, and my faith is also been very transformed in that sense. But this comes close to it, the sacred feel of being witness of a process that is just bigger than the three of us when we are three persons in a mediation. And the pause makes it possible. The open way of looking, waiting, people searching into themselves and digging up something bigger than even they could have imagined. So it's not, wisdom is not an aspect of a human being. We as human beings are part of the wisdom. The wisdom is going through us. And that stream of life, the stream of life, the stream of wisdom, in mediation, you experience that. You said in an earlier session, mediation is philosophy in practice. And I agree fully. It's just, we are not talking about it, we are doing it. It's making wisdom together. The wisdom of three people that is not of themselves, but that is flowing through them. So, and it's a practical thing also, because when I talk about it this way, it's a very high spiritual way of viewing these things, but it's just the experience. It's happening all the time.
I think that, but whether, did you have a look at that definition that Andrea had put out, which I keep putting out in every session, trying to, of course, compare philosophy to mediation.
I have it here.
I'll put it up here also. So this was something which really struck with me, that the fact that everything that we are looking at from this definition and what the work that we do, it is so connected that the aspect of philosopher, we have to reach that point also, that philosopher and mediator from philosophy and mediation. So thoughts on this, Herman?
Yeah. I see, of course, parallels, but I see also differences. Philosophy pursues questions in every dimension of human life. Of course, that's also mediation. In a sense, mediation is a part of philosophy in that sense. And its techniques applied to problems in any field of study or endeavor, agree. But when it's talked about, when it's saying it's a reasoned pursuit of fundamental truth, I disagree. I think it's not reasoned, it's intuitive. And of course, reason has a way, has place in that, but more as an explanation and as a symptom of the wisdom that is reached than as that it has to be a rational method. So a reasoned pursuit, I have questions about that. I think that's not always mediation, but it is a quest for understanding. And a study of principles of conduct, well, if you mean by study, a practical study, just trying what works, anything goes in that sense. I'm a very pragmatic person, and I think pragmatism as a philosophical school is also very close to mediation. Anything goes, against method. Paul Feyerabend is for me a very great hero. And even a little bit Noam Chomsky in his talk about anarchism. No method, it's just trying to get things done and experiencing what happens without described and before methodically worked out methods. That's a difference, I think. So reasoned pursuit, I don't think that's really always mediation. And a study of principles of conduct, it's not always a study, it's a practical, a pursuit of conduct. So that's some things, some thoughts.
But this actually, Greg also, because from reason and rational, these are things Greg had also pointed out that's not rational and it somewhere limits the creativity of the process. So that's why I put it out. I mean, look, the idea being that let's have discussions, just a conversation we're having. to take it forward. We also don't know, there are no answers that we have set there. Georgina is going to come out with her interesting thoughts on it. So, but Georgina, we're going to start your session on time. And the only thing is Herman, definitely half an hour is not enough for you. So when do we record part 2? When do you have time? After Georgina's session, do you have time?
Oh, well, today is difficult, but of course I will send you my free time, and then we make a different appointment. But can I close with one quotation of Rainer Maria Rilke? I promised before that, and for me this is such a beautiful closure for what I want to say. He says in Letters to a Young Poet, it's I'm going to talk a lot about that because that takes too much time. He says, have patience with everything that remains unsolved in your heart. Live in the question. Have patience, try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books written in a foreign language. Do not now look for the answers. They cannot now be given to you because you could not live them. It is a question of experiencing everything. At present, you need to live the question. Perhaps you will gradually, without even noticing it, find yourself experiencing the answer some distant day. I like that very much.
Nice, yes, very nice. But Herman, please find time today. Let's make part 2 part of the symposium, not separately. You don't have time later in the day?
I try.
Do you have
no, it's a very, very busy. I try to do. I try really. At the end of the day here, I have a little bit of time, so I try to get into it again.
So let me know, because we have time. Our closing session is at 10 o'clock India time, which is long time away. So any time in between we can.
Shall I put the time in the chat for you?
Yeah, please do that. Okay. Because we must. I think half an hour was not enough, but the way it was structured at that time, we put half an hour for sessions. But take it forward. So Herman, thank you very much, and we are going to record part 2. So we are not done. So let's continue it there. And a pleasure speaking to you and listening to you.
Yeah. And I will stay listening now. So I have time to 8:30 here, half an hour.
Perfect. And you can always come in because Georgina has lots of time. There's no session after her, so she can go as long as she wants to. So let me stop this recording, start the next one, and then we should go. Thank you very much.